Thank you very much. And yeah, today's class is on, well, I'm Pak Hei Chan. I'm Hayes for people who didn't take the class on Tuesday. And I'm a third year PhD student in Trinity right now. And my research is about the link between languages and sense of national identity in Hong Kong. And I'm sort of multilingual. I can speak Cantonese, Mandarin, and English. And I've also learned a bit of Swedish before, so I can read a bit of it as well. And yep, so today's class is on multilingualism and the English language. And here is the structure of it. So we'll start with a brief introduction to multilingualism, and we'll talk about individual multilingualism, followed by societal multilingualism, and then we talk a little bit about the significance of multilingualism. And to finish today's class, we've got a few questions for discussion. Okay, so multilingualism. What is multilingualism? In general, it refers to the capability to communicate in more than one language, and is a linguistic phenomenon which has existed no later than the Middle Ages. Under the effect of globalization, alongside the fact that there are more than 7,000 languages across the world, multilingualism has become a common phenomenon and has therefore increased its scholarly value. While multilingualism in general just refers to the ability to speak in more than one language, there are two main branches of studies in multilingualism. So the first one is individual multilingualism and societal multilingualism. And individual multilingualism mainly focuses on the individual language acquisition with respect to the level of proficiency, while societal multilingualism usually examines the languages within an institutional dimension, such as the roles of a language in a society, attitudes towards the language, or the relationship between languages and the language used in society. And yeah, so the multilingualism can be seen from either of those perspectives. And while they are different, they are closely related to each other. Why? Because the linguistic conditions of a society can often determine whether an individual within the society is likely to be multilingual. Singapore, for example, has 4 official languages, which are English, Chinese, Malay, and Tamil. In such a country with multiple official languages and a wide ethnic diversity, bilingual education has been encouraged to smoothen the communication process between citizens from different ethnic backgrounds. As a result, according to statistics, more than 70% of the Singaporean population were literate in 2 or more languages. And in fact, Singapore is one of the most multilingual countries in the world. Not only does it, not only does this example showcase that language policy and planning has an impact on societal multilingualism, it also illustrates that individuals living in a multilingual society is more likely to be multilingual than a monolingual society. So do you have any examples similar to the Singapore example, which can link up the individual or like a multilingual society with individual multilingualism? Yeah, perhaps. Yeah. Anyone has any thoughts about it, like linking cities?
I have a question here, because I need to know actually, how would you define a multilingual city or a multilingual country? Is it for the number of maybe other nationalities living in the country, or that they consider more than one language as an official language, not one language as Arabic, for example, here in Egypt? So I just need the definition for that, because I'm a bit confused concerning the multilingual cities.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I would probably see it as a city where most of the population are multilingual, because the language policy is more like a social condition, like a linguistic condition that can encourage a whole society to be multilingual. So that does it sort of make sense? So well, for me, I would probably see it as like, okay, a multilingual city would be more like a city where most people can speak more than in more than one language, if it makes sense.
Yeah, so I guess this could be applied to Emirates, Dubai maybe, and also it could be applied to Canada, I guess so, right?
Yeah, Canada, English and French, right?
Yeah.
I have another example. I think of Switzerland. I think Switzerland has 4 official languages: French, Italian, German, and Roman, I think, or Romansh. So I think this is an example, a good example of a multilingual country. And I think people, the individuals will learn different languages. I mean, eventually to communicate with each other.
Yeah,
I guess so.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, because once there are more than, well, like a few official languages in a city or in a country, it would encourage more people to be more to learn to be multilingual, to learn more languages.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, just to sort of smoothen the communication barriers or something. And okay, let's see what Lorna says. Multilingual cities can be sites where there is a systematic individual lingual, but all cities in the world can be classed as de facto multilingual city. Ah, thank you for the idea, Lorna. Yeah, I think, yeah. So it's due to multiple coexisting speech communities. Yeah. That I think that. Yeah. So from what Lorna said, I think the idea of multilingual cities would be a place where, where there are like the population would be multilingual, I think, and they're trained to be multilingual, if I get it right. I think, if it makes sense. So, because what I think is that when the society is, when the language policies, or when there are more official languages, then it means that education system would definitely, the education system would train people to be multilingual. So that would contribute to a multilingual society, because there would be like a systematic way to train individuals to be multilingual, if I get it right. Yeah. And yeah, thank you for Lorna for the idea. And any other thoughts about it? Any other thoughts about? Well, for me, coming from Hong Kong, there are 2 written official languages in Hong Kong, which are written Chinese and written English, and that's why in school we have English education and Chinese education, and that's why we were trained to be multilingual since a very young age. And I'm guessing that's one example that can support the idea that language policies would contribute to a multilingual society, which can then train individuals to be multilingual, if it makes sense.
Yeah, well, actually, I just have an example that have popped up in my mind right now, and it's very relevant. Well, Egypt before the revolution, the 1952 revolution, it was actually a multilingual country, as there were lots of people who are residents, like Greeks and Italians, French, and for more than one nationality. And also the written language, the official written language was not only Arabic but also French, and the spoken language was Arabic and other languages.
So the official languages were Arabic and French, is it?
Yes, yes, especially in the courts, the language of the courts and the legal documents was written in French.
Yeah, so basically the official languages would affect whether society can be multilingual, I guess, well, to a certain extent, or to a high extent, actually, I think. Yeah, so I saw Dina raising the hand. Yeah, Dina.
Oh, good morning, Hayes.
Yeah, good morning.
How are you doing? Well, I just have a question for you. Do you think there is a difference between cosmopolitanism and multilingualism based on Yomna's clarification about the multiple nationalities that used to live in Egypt before the era of Nasser, I mean, before 1952. So do you think there is a clear distinction between both of these terms?
So you mean cosmopolitan and multilingualism? Is there like a link between the two?
Yeah, is there a link between both if we have multinationalities in just one country and we have many people who speak different languages or different dialects? I mean,
well, yeah, I think cosmopolitan is definitely, I would see it as a driving force for multilingualism, because now that the sense of being like or having a multi-nationality would definitely drive you to drive different people to acquire the languages which are very popular. That makes, like, for example, English one of the most learned languages.
So under the umbrella of society, we can draw upon these two terms. I mean, they are on equal footage, multilingualism and cosmopolitanism.
I mean, multilingualism focuses on language a little bit more, but I think cosmopolitan would refer to the idea that
social classes.
It's more like the ideas of like everyone belongs to a single, like one community, because of, like, for example, global citizens. I think that's the main idea of it, like the idea of like global world citizens. I think that so it doesn't specifically focus on language, I think, but well, multilingualism focuses on language. But
well, I think if we have a nationality, that means that we have a language for communication.
Yeah, if you see it that way. And let's see what Lorna says. My instinct is that the main difference between cosmopolitanism and contemporary multilingualism is linked to power relations. Contemporary multilingualism tends to be grassroots and bottom-up, impacted by international migration, technology, and globalization. Yeah, so I think Lorna gave a very good point, because well, I think it's sort of similar to the idea that globalization, for example, provides like a driving force for people to be multilingual, I think. So what I think is that cosmopolitanism can sort of be seen in a similar way, because we feel like we are the world citizens. I think that's one of the reasons why there is globalization, for example, and that under globalization, people will have the motivation to be multilingual, to sort of to be able to communicate with the world. I think. Does it sort of answer the question, or?
Yeah. Thank you very much, Hayes.
Yeah. Just what I think is that multilingualism is more about being able to speak more than one language, and cosmopolitanism is the idea that the idea of like being a global citizen or world citizen. Yeah. Any other thought or question? If not, then we'll go to the next part, which is individual multilingualism. Okay. Share. So now we're talking about individual multilingualism, and it refers to the repertoire to varieties of language which individuals use, according to the definition that Senos provided in 2013. And language acquisition is often the focus when doing research on individual multilingualism with regards to the linguistic environment to which individuals are exposed. It can also concern the ways in which the brain works with monolingualism, bilingualism, and multilingualism. To discuss individual multilingualism, it is crucial to sort of understand the concept of monolinguals and multilinguals. I mean, they seem to be quite easy, but then, I mean, they seem to be quite simple, but it would be quite a good.
Okay, hi.
Hello?
Can I interrupt you?
Yeah, sure.
Hi,
sure.
I'm sorry. Can I interrupt you? Can you go to the slide?
Yeah.
Okay, so you said here that individual multilingualism repertoire of varieties of language. So this refers to if I speak two different varieties of the same language, then I'm multilingual. It doesn't refer to just speaking two different languages.
Yeah, well, usually, well, really, it really depends on the definition you choose. But this is the one that I chose, and well, for me, because I think some languages can have many different varieties, but then, but usually the general definition that you get, I mean, but yeah, some of the definitions you get would be about different languages, but yeah, depends on which one is more suitable for your research, and then you choose that one. I think that's the right way to take it. I think that would be the way. Yeah, but this is the one I chose because my research is about like Cantonese Mandarin. Because I would say they're two different languages, but then to be on the safe side, I think I would choose this definition because they're both Chinese. But then they are two languages, but then yeah, but just to be on the safe side, I chose this one to start with. But that's just me. I mean, there are so many different definitions out there. Yeah.
Thank you.
No worries. And yeah, so monolinguals. A monolingual generally refers to an individual who is proficient in one language, or yeah, and for instance, or you see, or different varieties of one language. Yeah, so yeah, here's a contradiction in my PowerPoint actually. Yeah,
it's okay.
Yeah. For instance, a person who can speak only English would be classified as a monolingual. And under globalization, monolingualism is deemed as a disadvantage as it would limit your scope of communication with the world. With English being the global language, non-native speakers of English are motivated to learn English as a second language in order to increase their competitiveness in both education and achievements in the job market. This makes English the most popular language to acquire as a second language. However, it also contributes to the fact that English-speaking countries remain the countries with the lowest percentages of multilinguals. Some statistics show that around 20% of Americans are multilinguals, and because they are less likely to be motivated to learn the other languages when majority of individuals around the world are trying to attempt to learn English for communication purposes. Yeah, so that's the idea of monolinguals. Do you think that's true that, for example, because English is a global language, do you think that's the reason why, or that can contribute to the lack of motivation for English speakers to learn more languages? Do you think that's true? Any ideas about that? Yeah. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I have a thought about that. I think I do agree that English is, it's necessary to learn English. I mean, here in the faculty where I teach, we teach a lot of languages, okay? So I teach English as a second language. So if a student is learning, for example, Spanish, he takes another foreign language to study, and this is English, and I just tell them that you have to learn English beside the other language that you're learning in order to be able to communicate easily with everyone and so on. So yes, I stress this point a lot when I teach my students about the importance of English, even if you are actually learning another language. So yeah, I do agree with that.
Yeah, because I think I mean, yeah, because in Hong Kong as well, because although English is an official language, but we are encouraged to learn it because it would give us more opportunities to
exactly
to reach out to the world. Yeah, so it's more about like the motivation, the personal motivation that that encourages you to learn English. While I think for example, in some English-speaking countries, they learn the other languages more because they want to learn them. So it's more like about interest than the actual motivation to reach out to the world. I think that makes sense.
Exactly. Yeah.
Any other thought about it, or any other experiences to share? Yeah. For me, we have to learn English to increase the competitiveness, to get a better job, to get to uni. But then I also like it personally, so it's more like an interest and motivation for me. If there is no other thoughts, then we'll go to bilingualism or multilingualism. Then okay. So bilingualism, which is also a form of multilingualism, refers to the capacity to use two languages on a daily basis, or to have the habitual use of two languages colloquially. So that's the definition from Senos again. But yeah, bilingual, if it's more than two languages, then yeah, again, it's multilingualism. Even two languages would count as multilingualism anyway. And in the aspect of individual multilingualism, research tends to focus on how the brain works with the operation of two languages when it comes to bilingualism. With English being the global language, it is becoming a trend for monolinguals to turn bilingual, with English for individual advantages. Apart from being able to speak one further language, studies have also shown that bilinguals or multilinguals are better at cognitive demanding tasks compared to monolinguals, because bilingualism and multilingualism improve an individual's executive function in the brain. And some other studies also show that bilinguals have higher ability to deal with conflicts and distractions, which might be due to their ability to keep languages apart and ability to process linguistic information. With these in mind, there is no wonder why bilinguals or multilingualism is the trend and the norm, because of the benefits it can bring to how the brain works, according to some studies, and the languages, the advantages that it would give you in terms of your competitiveness. And yeah, okay. And then here is a sort of discussion. So there is one frequently asked question about individual multilingualism. Where do we draw the line between monolingualism and bilingualism? In other words, how fluent do we have to be at a language to claim to be bilingual or multilingual? Which means how good do you have to be to claim that you actually know that language? Yeah, so where do we draw the line? So, and here I've got two ideas from two scholars. The first one, Bloomfield, takes on the idea that in order to claim bilingualism, one has to have two languages of a relatively similar or well-developed fluency. And the other one, Hawking, claims that one can be bilingual if he can produce a complete and meaningful utterance in his second language. So he focuses on the active capability of language. Yeah, so so how fluent do we have to be at a language to claim to be bilingual or multilingual? Would any of those ideas work? What do you think? Yeah.
Yeah, I guess that Bloomfield hypothesis is very accurate to how like the society consider a person, at least a society considers a person a bilingual or a multilingual, to be maybe fluent in his definitely mother tongue and fluent in the second language that he speaks, or the third language, or the number of languages which he speak. So yeah, I guess that he at least has to be fluent, if not near native or almost native in the other languages.
That that makes sense. Yeah, because well, two languages of but then it's what I think is a little bit vague. Just two languages, right? One has to have two languages of a relatively similar and well-developed fluency. But then the two languages, well, because it doesn't really talk about like the sort of like what sort of fluency in terms of like, you know, what kind of skills, you know, listening, for example, speaking, those kind of skills. But then yeah, that's why it sounds quite accurate, but then I found it a little bit too vague, if it makes sense. But anyone else has any other thoughts? Yeah.
Yes, I actually agree with Yomna, because for example know very little Spanish. I can produce a meaningful utterance, but I wouldn't call myself multilingual because I know Spanish. So I have to be I have to have a well-developed fluency, like what Bloomfield said. And I mean, this is personally speaking. So I agree with the Yomna. I have to be fluent in all the four skills and a minimum level of B1 or B2 in the language in order to be called multilingual. So that's my own opinion.
Yeah, and one of that sounds quite right as well. But then one of the concerns I've got is that the two languages of relatively similar or well-developed fluency, does it even include this? Would the two languages include the mother tongue or the native language anyway? Because if it doesn't, if it's not, if it doesn't include the native language, then the well-developed fluency is quite big in terms of so in terms of the meaning behind it. So I found it well, that's my idea anyway. But it's definitely
I got your idea. You have a point. Yes.
Yeah. So
if we count our mother tongue as one of the languages, so it's not fair. I mean, you are fluent by nature in it. So
because
I get your point.
Yeah, the impression that we'll get is that we'll take it like it has to include the mother tongue, because the idea when I first saw the code, I actually thought it was like of course it includes the mother tongue, but it actually didn't say so. So if you think if you think that if it doesn't count the mother tongue, then that can be a little bit like too big. And what about the second quote? Anyone likes it? Does anyone like it?
I actually like it. I actually like it. I can call myself multilingual in Spanish because I can produce a meaningful utterance, but I wouldn't have a full conversation in Spanish, and that would I wouldn't count myself.
For me as well, because I know a few phrases in Japanese, a few sentences, but I can't speak it. So the second claim is definitely like completely ignores the other sort of abilities, of a language. Like, for example, it doesn't say whether you need to be able to listen to read it, of the reading, listening, or the writing part. It doesn't really say much about it. So, which are also quite important to language capability, and that's why this claim is pretty much incomplete in my opinion. And so you guys like the Bloomfield idea, but if you can change it, how would you change it? Would there be like a way to sort of change it better? Or?
Maybe we can
be more definite. I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
It has to be more definite in terms of skills, and in which level should that be concerned bilingual. So so here the measurement or the evaluation of how far is a person is considered to be bilingual in terms of proficiency, language proficiency, and in which skills exactly. And I think when it comes to the 4 skills, that would be perfect. However, when Hagen said this, Hayes, we have, of course, in Cairo, we have the permits, right? And we have people who rent, just like give you horses to ride. So those people can speak maybe 7 or 8 languages to communicate with tourists. However, they cannot write it or read it.
Yeah.
So applying Hagen's definition, that won't be considered. They won't be considered actually. They will be considered bilingual. However, they cannot communicate. They just communicate, but they cannot read it or write it.
Yeah.
So I think restrictions.
Yeah. I think that's true. Because the Hagen's view is like too incomplete. It's just more about like you can just produce one complete and meaningful utterance, and then you can claim proficiency. But then,
can I add something, Hayes?
Yeah.
So, based on what Reem has just said about people who communicate with tourists at the pyramids, they speak more than one language, but they cannot write any of these, or just to practice away from their workplace. Okay, back to the question. And based on that, I think that there is no problem to be a bilingual or a multilingual, but this depends on some factors, I guess, like your personal linguistic competence, your social surroundings, which permit you to practice the language. And I think that language starts from listening and speaking, and thus it frames your communication skill. And then language proficiency, when we come to reading and writing, it's an advanced stage. That's my personal perspective. I see that. So if I can call myself a multilingual person, I have Arabic as my mother tongue and English as a second language, and I'm a beginner in Spanish. Okay.
Yeah.
So in that case, I would call that I have Spanish as the third language for communication, despite the fact that I'm at a very beginning stage, but still we have some other languages, okay, that allow me to communicate with Spanish people. And I see that I'm achieving results. I'm building relationships with people who speak Spanish. So it depends upon practice.
Yeah.
So that's my point of view. So I can call myself fluent, whether I am bilingual or multilingual, based on what? Based on practice and my linguistic competence that allows me to perceive linguistic structure, linguistic. I mean, the way I should perform in the language.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, being able to communicate is definitely one of the main criteria in a language to be able to claim bilingualism or multilingualism for sure. But yeah, I see your point. And for me, I think I would probably follow the structure of, like, for example, English proficiency tests. I think speaking, listening, reading, and writing are four of the 4 skills that one probably has to be able to acquire to a certain level. to be able to claim bilingualism or multilingualism. But that's just my idea, because that's how we were always talking about in Hong Kong, where we grew up. We always combine all the four components in all the languages that we have to learn. So speaking, listening, reading, and writing. And so I think, yeah, for me, I would probably put the standard according to the guidelines set by for example, IELTS test, that kind of English proficiency test. But it's very hard to give a definitive answer to the questions, because there would be too many different complications under different circumstances. Yeah, and the interpretation of the degree of language capability of bilingualism is very vague, and it can only be used as a reference when determining whether an individual is bilingual or multilingual, if it makes sense. Yeah. Anyone else has any more thoughts? Any more ideas about that? Any other ideas? Wait a second. Yeah. Okay, then we'll get to the next slide too. Okay. So to sum up, when it comes to researching on individual multilingualism, the proficiency and the ways in which the mind works would usually be the focus. And in other words, research on multilingualism, individual multilingualism, mostly lies within the area of language acquisition with respect to more like proficiency-based criterion. Examples would include studies which look at whether the multilingualism has positive impact on helping an individual performing other tasks. Thus finding out how the mind works with information, including the linguistic information. In this way, research on individual multilingualism can benefit the medical field, because it tells you it can be about how the mind works with how the brain works with languages. And it can also benefit the education field, because the quality of education can be improved with our increased knowledge of how the mind works and how it stores and retrieves information, which includes linguistics information. And so, yeah, that's the end part of individual multilingualism. And here are the two questions which we can perhaps think about. So, what are some of the driving forces for individual multilingualism? What motivates people to be multilingual? We talked a little bit about that: globalization, more competitiveness, if you are multilingual. But are there more reasons why people or why individuals would want to be multilingual? And the second question, which I thought about, but I don't really have many answers for it just yet. Are there any benefits of being monolinguals? Yeah, so here are the two questions which I have. Any thoughts on that?
Yes, I do have one thought about the first question here,
Yeah.
that now people tend to be or learn more than one language, and especially English. And now people are also trying to learn German, because this opens up more job opportunities, and it's really important in the business field. So yeah, especially in Egypt, actually, more now, like outsourcing companies are opening, and they ask for people speaking fluent English and sometimes German, and now they also ask for French and Italian and more languages. So yes, it opens up job opportunities for everyone.
Yeah, job opportunities, that's part of like competitiveness, so education and job markets, and probably social network as well. I guess it's easier to make friends with others, so that's one thing brought by globalization, I guess. We must see your hands up, so
yes, Hayes. Of course, Yumna has got a point as far as education and job opportunities are concerned. But now in the younger ages, okay, because I'm 40 years old, so younger ages now I can relate that they need to be open up to other cultures. So they are interested to know the culture instead of reading the subtitles or the translation of the movies or the series they are watching, or even communicating with others through translation. So they need to be immersed in the culture. So this motivates them to learn Chinese, Japanese, Turkish, Spanish. Although in Egypt we were only interested, or just like the um, upper class people or middle class people tend to learn English and French. So now we're open up to other culture and other languages.
Yeah, yeah. It's more about the interest of learning about other cultures. That's what you mentioned, and I completely agree with that, because that's the reason why I'm trying to self-learn Japanese, because I'm trying to, yeah, because I like Japanese culture as well, and I watch anime. So it's more about, it's about interest as well, you know. So yeah, and
it might be for linguistic aspects, by the way. It might be your interest. It might be somebody's interested to know the linguistic aspects of a language and compare and contrast his or her language with English and a third language.
Yeah, that's true. That's why I did Swedish when I was in Scotland. Exactly.
See?
Because I watched the film Copenhagen back then, and I saw some of the spelling was like quite interesting. It was so similar to, well, some of the words were quite similar to English, but then the university I was in only authored Swedish, so I tried that, and it became more interesting as I could compare Swedish with Danish. So yeah, that's one reason. Yeah, but thank you for your idea. Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, thanks. And Dina, I saw your hands up.
Yes, Hayes. The last session we talked about language attitudes, so I want to relate between language attitudes and I mean, the way I want to, I mean, I forgot the question. I forgot your question. I'm sorry.
What are some of the driving forces for individual multilingualism?
The motivation to learn, to learn a language and language attitudes. Okay, so here we go. Well, language attitudes depend on opinions, ideas, and we might have a prejudice that the speakers have with a language. So, for example, if we said in the Egyptian context, we have the opinion that we should master English, because this is the way we can. This is the gateway through which we can join multinational companies or certain type of education, as my colleagues has just mentioned. So the prejudice goes for what? Goes for mastering English and speaking English all the time. Some people get to be showy in social practices. They tend to practice English more than Arabic, and the idea that we get to be biased to English because we glorify having knowledge, having etiquette, having culture, but in English more than Arabic. I hope my idea was correct enough.
Yeah, I think I can see your point. Yeah, language attitude definitely helps to, well, either motivate or discourage someone to learn a language. But I think more likely would be motivating, because I think if you really have a very positive idea or positive attitudes towards one certain language, you're more encouraged to learn it well and to become.
Yeah, that's the way I get motivated to have another language, which typify or categorize myself as bilingual or multilingual at the end of the day.
Yeah, that completely makes sense. I think that's pretty good. Yeah, a very good thought, linking up language attitudes and multilingualism. Perhaps I can add that link to my research thank you very much for the thought, Jen. That's pretty good. Yeah,
No
very
problem.
good. Yeah.
Thank you.
And yeah, any other thoughts? Any other thoughts about this just now? About what about the second questions? Are there any benefits of being monolinguals? I thought about this for quite some time, but I couldn't really come up with any just now. Would anyone have any?
I don't think there is any benefit, especially nowadays, of being a multilingual, a monolingual, because we are now living in like the globalization era and multilingual era. So yeah, being a monolingual is just, became outdated,
So it's a disadvantage indeed. But yeah, because the initial thought that I was that, well, I was thinking, maybe monolinguals would be more specialized in one language because it's the only language he can rely on. But it's not really the case. It's just a very, very brief thought, like a crazy thought that I had one night. I was like, perhaps I can ask this question in the class and see whether there are any ideas about that. Yeah, that's what I thought.
Can I say something?
Yeah, sure.
I'd like to comment on what Anna said. She said that there is no benefits of being monolingual. I'd like to say that sometimes there are some experts in Dutch, and they cannot speak any language other than Arabic. And sometimes I refer to them when I can't understand anything or a phrase in Arabic. Sometimes, even though I am my mother tongue is Arabic, and sometimes I face and I have to refer to the experts in the Arabic language to understand what's meant by this sentence. And these people and these scholars cannot speak more than Arabic or lingual. So sometimes specializing in one language can be beneficial. Can you hear clearly?
Yeah. There was like a few seconds loss of the sound, but your idea was that being monolingual can. Would you repeat briefly about that idea, please? Because a few seconds your sound was
okay. I'd like to say that. Can you hear me clearly now?
It's better now. Yeah.
I'd like to say that specializing in one language can be beneficial sometimes.
Yeah, because go on, keep going on.
Because sometimes I can't understand some sentences written in Arabic, and I refer to they cannot speak any language other Arabic, and they help me in understanding some sentences that are very difficult to understand, even in Arabic. And they are monolingual. They aren't bilingual or multilingual. So specializing in one language can be beneficial sometimes.
Yeah, I can see your point here, because the idea is that because if you're monolingual, you will definitely not be affected with, like, for example, code switching, which can change your knowledge of the mother tongue that you know. I think, because I think that might be one of the reasons why sometimes we might have the perception that maybe monolinguals would know a little bit more about the language. Maybe they can specialize in it a little bit easier, because that's the only language that they can rely on. So they won't use the other language to or daily. They won't use the other languages daily, which might affect their knowledge about the original language, I think. Dina, I saw your hands up. Yeah.
Yes, Hayes, again, back to the question of the benefits of being a multilingual person. You know, nowadays people need to master or to be able to communicate with more than one foreign language. So we need to enhance our communication skills and being able to make decisions. Okay, and if we have that critical thinking point, we can compare between the multilinguistic structures. I mean, the way we perform the language, we can compare somehow between languages. And again, back to another point, we can better develop our executive control systems and the working memory. I mean, this is the part of the brain that controls our ability to switch attention and exercise working memory. So I can see the benefits from each and everything. That's my idea.
Yeah. Well, being multilingual is the benefits of being multilingual is always there. But then for example, the examples I showed on the slide were like about how the brain works, or how multilinguals might be able to perform a little bit better in like cognitive tasks and like executive functions. But then it's more obvious, like the benefits of being multilingual.
So can we conclude that the benefits can be cognitive, can be social?
Cognitive.
And can be personal. I mean, you can typify, you can have lots of benefits all the time.
There are so many benefits of being multilingual. Exactly. Any other thoughts or ideas? If not, then we'll take the break now. I think it's a 30-minute break, if I'm correct. Will we take a break now? Lauren, are you here?
Can I ask a question, Hayes?
Oh yeah, sure. One question. Sure.
Is your presentation uploaded?
I uploaded it last night. It should be online. Can you?
Okay.
And an article, and I uploaded one article as well, because the other one I had was like a little bit bigger than the size I can upload. I don't know why. Just but I'll find a way to upload. Maybe I will just compress it and upload it later.
You can compress, or you can send via mail if you don't mind.
Yeah. You seem to be quite interested in this topic.
A lot, especially after I thought about language attitudes and multilingualism. It triggers more ideas into my mind.
That's good. Good to hear that. I'm glad that you like it. So no worries. And so we'll take the break now. This part of the class will be about societal multilingualism. With approximately 7,000 languages existing in the world across 200 countries, societal multilingualism has become a main branch of study of multilingualism. Societal multilingualism looks at the linguistic phenomenon of multilingualism as a societal attribute. It can be in relation, examples of research about research on societal multilingualism can be, like, for example, research about the language policy and planning, as there is some of the social factors determining the use of languages among different social groups. So, or it can focus on the use of languages within a community. It can be said that individual multilingualism overlaps with certain areas of societal multilingualism, because the linguistic capability and the language choice of an individual can be shaped by societal environment. Okay. So Garcia said that multilingualism was traditionally associated with the third world, while monolingualism was more associated with the first world. In this context, first world countries would refer to the developed countries, while the third world countries would refer to the developing countries. The claim seemed to be reasonable to quite a high extent, both on a national level and on the personal level. On a national level, the first world countries nowadays tend to be the former hegemony at some point in the past. Activities such as colonization and conquest in the past would have contributed to multilingualism to the colonized countries, which were usually the third world countries. Historical events such as colonization and conquest were usually carried out by the first world countries nowadays, and that's why it created a multilingual. It could create a multilingual environment in the colonized society, as they would plant their native language in a colonized country. For example, Hong Kong was colonized by Britain before for more than 100 years, and it was a time when English was brought to Hong Kong, and that is part of the reasons why we still have we still have English as a compulsory subject in Hong Kong, and that's why most people in Hong Kong can still speak English to a certain extent, even nowadays. However, while monolingualism, according to Garcia, was more associated with the First World, it is often also multilingualism also became norm in the First World nowadays under the phenomenon of globalization. In a globalized world, international economic activities between states are more likely to happen than in the previous decades. In this way, it would be more sensible for states or the first world countries to promote multilingualism, so there would be fewer communication barriers between states, which can improve their pace of development. So what's your take on that? Do you think Garcia is right about like monolingualism being associated with first world countries and multilingualism usually being associated with the third world countries? Or yeah, what's your take on that? Any ideas?
Can you repeat the question, Hayes? I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, it's fine. Do you agree with Garcia's idea that multilingualism was more traditionally associated with third world countries, while monolingualism was more associated with the first world countries?
Yes,
Well,
I totally agree for me.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I would really say that I would really agree with the first part.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, multilingualism is associated with the third world. Mm-hmm. Because when we get to see the Egyptian example, the example of the Egyptian context, we have been colonized by the English, I mean, by England for like 74 years, until before 1952. So which means that we've been exposed to the English people, culture, colonization, English army. I mean, we have dealt with those people in Egypt. So colonization left the effect of having English as a second language. Okay. Unlike French, we had the French army in Egypt, but it was not that for not very long. I mean, the effect of the French colonization wasn't like the English.
Yeah. So then you still agree with the first part of the quote as
the first part, but honestly, I do not get the second part of the definition really well. So if you have an example, just please clarify.
Yeah, because I would think the idea came from the fact that the monolingual rate would be higher in, for example, English-speaking countries, because because usually it was the first world countries that colonized the other country, and they brought their native language to the other countries, and that's why they don't really need to learn another country. I guess that's Garcia's take, and that's why she wrote that. I think that's the idea behind it. Yeah. But then well, I think now it's not the case, because under globalization, multilingualism is also like a norm in first world countries, I think. Yeah. So any ideas or any thoughts? Yeah. I saw Sarah having a hand up. Yeah. Sarah? Or was it?
Yes, can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can. Yeah, I can hear you now. Yeah.
Okay, great. Well, I actually agree with you when it comes to the effect of globalization on us now. I think it's more related to the culture rather than the language itself. So now we have more than 20 countries speaking English, yet we have one American culture that's more influential when it comes to language. And people prefer to learn American English now than British English, yet we were, as a country, Egypt, we were colonized by the British Empire. So now it's more the idea is more inclined that we are more influenced by the American culture, even first world countries like I don't know, like Australia, for example. We still have an English Hollywood influence there. So yes, monolingualism is still more prevalent in first world countries, yet it's not just the language, the culture itself also plays a very important role here in what kind of culture is more influential than the other one. Even in the Arab world, yes, we are more multilingual and diverse than first world countries, yet some cultures are more influential in our world. So when it comes to like the Egyptian colloquial accent or dialect, we are more known throughout the Arab world because of our cinema and our movies as well. So maybe people from the Gulf or Syria, they are familiar with our accent, and we might not be as familiar. So again, this is because of the culture that's taking over other ones. So yeah, that's my point.
Yeah, I agree with your point as well, because Hong Kong is another example. Culture, we were colonized by Britain, and then but then now I think people tend to learn, well, if they really want to learn, like if they really want to improve their English, they tend to do the American accent as well, because of the culture that they get into in Hong Kong. So culture is definitely like a big point here as well. Yeah. I saw Yomna having her hand up.
Yeah. Well, actually, I want to add a point here concerning the multilingualism and the monolingualism and the speaking, or the first world countries and third world countries. So I guess it's all based on the power relations, as Lorna has said earlier concerning this point. Because for example, if you go to Europe, for example, you'll find that like German people tend to speak only German. They don't want to speak English, even if they are aware of the English language and they can speak English language. French people are the same, and so on. So they are this is actually not only being like monolingual or something like that, but it's all about also being proud of their own identity. So yes, I guess this applies for the first or the first world countries, because they have a strong identity and they are proud of their own identity more than the third world country. So it has to do with the attitudes. Again, let's refer back to the attitudes towards languages.
Yeah, and it's about the link. Yeah, it's just like the on Tuesday we talked about attitudes and identity. Yep. So it's pretty much related to that as well. Like whether a country or a society tends to be multilingual or not, it can really be related to the sense of identity indeed. And I saw Omama having said in the chat, societal multilingualism is related to imperialism. Yeah, it can be it can be, well, imperialism can be a cause of societal multilingualism. Yes, they could be related, but I think, for example, globalization encourages well, it's another reason for societal multilingualism, and that's not really, it doesn't have to involve imperialism, I think, but it can be related, if it makes sense. Yeah, so we'll go ahead to the next part. Yeah, so multilingualism and multiculturalism are the defining characters of a society, especially in a world where constant movements and relocations are common between people. First world countries tend to be attractive immigration destinations for people in the third world countries due to their advancements in different fields and stability in many aspects. The movements and or relocations can be driven by different reasons, such as colonization, conquest in the past, or reasons which are more modern related, such as job opportunities or political protections. The movement of people motivates people to be multilingual in order to be able to reach out to the world. The glossia, which refers to a situation in which two languages or two varieties of the same language are used under different conditions within a community, has become a common phenomenon since globalization became the trend. Yep. Any thoughts about that? Like, it's more, well, this is more about like on a personal level, why societal multilingualism is like, it's quite common nowadays. It's why multilingualism and multiculturalism are the defining characters of this society. Anything else to add to this, or is it straightforward? Or is it, yeah, I think we'll go ahead then. Okay, so now we talk about the significance of multilingualism. The modern society is a globalized world of transition, in which multilingualism can be seen as a main driving force for globalization, as it facilitates the communication between people around the world, which allows us to extend many activities from being local to global, such as trades and businesses. Globalization makes the global mobility a trend, as migration is now a much more common act than ever before. Therefore, linguistic diversity is commonly found in different regions or countries. On a national level, as Miller pointed out here, polities often have to wrestle with the problem of multilingual population, and that post-colonial nations, in most cases, have to decide between using the native language or the language of the imperialist with careful consideration. Indeed, languages share unequal statuses in most countries in terms of their political, economic, cultural, and social values. In this way, multilingualism also holds a significant impact on the views on the nation or a certain district. While having English to foster the pace of globalization appears to be beneficial for the development in many aspects for different states, it is also possible to argue that the rise of English due to globalization poses a challenge to other languages, thus threatening the local cultural identities or even the sense of national identities of many people. Like considering the crucial link between language and sense of identity. Yeah. Any thoughts on that? Modern society with globalization is a world of transition, so multilingualism is a good thing to foster the world to cooperate. And the second point, languages can be used as a political tool, and whether English is a threat to the other languages or culture. Any thoughts about that? Yep, I saw Obama having the hand up. Yep.
Yes, I'd like to say something related to English as a threat to the other languages. I'd like to say that many Egyptians tend to write Arabic words using English letters. And we call this phenomenon here in Egypt Franco.
Franco.
And this is a great and strong threat to the Arabic language. I believe people who do this, writing Arabic words in English letters, are destroying the Arabic language. So I believe that English really as a global language is a strong threat to Arabic as an example. Yeah. I don't know if this phenomenon exists in other cultures or other countries, but this phenomenon in Egypt are widespread, and it's very prevalent here in Egypt, using writing Arabic words using English letters, which is called Franco here in Egypt. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you got my point.
Yeah, I get your point. Yeah, I mean, so yeah, the Franco phenomenon is more like using English words to write in Egyptian, sort of.
Yes, yes.
And it's more common now than ever before, right? Is it becoming more common now than before? Or?
Yes, yes. Yeah. It's more common than before. I don't know why. I can't understand the person who writes to me in Franco. I swear by God, I tell him or her, I can't understand what you are writing to me. Please write either English or Arabic. Don't write to me Arabic words using English letters. I can't understand you.
Yeah, just ask them to write properly, I guess. But I think it happens in other places as well. I mean, well, I come from Hong Kong, and yeah, it happens in Hong Kong as well. Some people nowadays, they actually use again English characters to sort of write out to write Chinese, but then based on how the Chinese words are pronounced. So I don't get those either. It's very hard to understand it. Some of the words they write in English, but it's actually Chinese that they've tried to write. Yeah, exactly. I get your point, and I think it could be a way to affect how a language is going to be developed. But it, in my opinion, it wouldn't really completely kill off a whole language, but it would definitely change different languages and culture. Yeah.
Yes, I have a comment. I personally don't think that it's a threat. Mm-hmm. I tend not to see language change as a threat. I see it as a development in the language, and especially here in Egypt or in Arabic, we have a diagnostic situation. So we have the standard Arabic and the colloquial Arabic. The standard Arabic is preserved. It will never be ruined or anything. And I see the way we use, for example, Franco. I use Franco, and I write in Franco and I write in Arabic, and I think it's okay. I don't see any evolution of language or the way we communicate as a threat. And actually, you were asking that if English is as a global language is a threat to other languages. I don't think so, because a lot of varieties of English, we call it now global Englishes. So English is the one affected by its spread among the world. So it's the other way around. That's my opinion. And I like language change, and I like how languages affect each other. I don't think of it as a threat or something like that. So that's my own point of view.
Yeah, because a language would definitely change anyway. It's just that because languages undergo changes from time to time anyway. It's just like it's just happened to be
I mean, especially here, especially in Arabic, we have the standard Arabic. We use it in written communications and so on. So it won't be ruined in any other way. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can see it as like just a language change. Yeah, because I don't really. I mean, the worst case is that at the least I don't think a language would completely die out because of that. So it just undergo changes, which is
Of
like,
course not.
yeah,
Yes, yeah.
just like
It
in the
won't die
past.
out as long as we're here speaking it. Yeah.
Just like in the past, yeah, English underwent so many changes throughout the years anyway, if you look at the history. So it's probably pretty much going to be the similar situation, I guess. And I see 3 hands. Obama, yeah, are you waiting to speak again, or okay, Yomna?
Yeah, so I want to second Wissam also in what she has mentioned. It's because actually now there is a great growth in the number of learners of Arabic as a second language or as a foreign language. So yes, I don't think that Arabic will never, it will never actually die out. And especially that we do have a reference. We have a written document, which is Quran, the holy book of Islam. It's written in proper Arabic and the Fusha, which is the standard Arabic. So we always have a reference to the language, which is at least this holy book. And definitely language is never like a static tool. It's always dynamic. So development is the what marks actually any language in the world. So yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a very interesting point, actually. Yeah, indeed. Yeah, and yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, at the very least, I don't think the language is going to die out because of that anyway. At the very least, so it's good. Yeah, and I see Dina having the hand up.
Oh yes, Hayes. I want to comment on 2 points. The first one is about the threat to any of the foreign languages. Well, I do not think that there could be a threat based on 3 factors. First, the market needs. So when we get to need people to work, we require certain levels of language proficiency, or their ability or their competence to speak this language. And also we have a very important point about power relations and and politics. So if we are gaining weight in the power relations, and I mean we are being powerful, we are able to spread our language, we are able to teach this language to other people or other target for foreign students, like what we have in Alexandria University. I get to see a number of nationalities who come to the university to learn Arabic. And what makes Arabic powerful, I second Yumna in her opinion when she said that we have a Quran, that's the Islam book. It's written in Fusha, so it will never be ruined. I mean, it's something that furnished the base for Arabic to grow, to spread. What else? So now, yeah, and the increase of the population. So if we are increasing in the demographic, if I got it right, and in the population, so we need language to communicate and to spread and deliver our culture, customs, traditions, and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks for your point. Yeah, yeah. If you talk about just for the point regarding increasing the population, because it might be a different case in Hong Kong, because where I come from, and because nowadays you can often see like the young parents don't want their kids to speak Cantonese at home. They want them to speak English. because they think English is a very important language and Cantonese is not. So because we don't really have any like sort of cultural things related to Cantonese. It's more seen as a tool in Hong Kong for communication only, but it's not really, it doesn't really have much value in terms of like in terms of whether it's going to help you to get a job or to be more competitive in education system. Or yeah, so that's why in Hong Kong the younger generations, well, some of them were not really encouraged to be using Cantonese daily. So because they think English and even Mandarin from mainland China would be more important. So that's why I would agree to a certain extent that English or some other powerful languages in a certain area would could pose a threat to the local language which is already there. Yeah. Any other thought? Yomna, your hand is up. Do you have anything to share? Yeah. Any other thoughts about that? Or we can go to a few more questions. The last slides, like a few discussion points. Yeah, we'll go ahead then. So here I've got a few questions regarding multilingualism. Yeah, so is it common to be multilingual in your country? Do you think multilingualism will continue to be the trend and the norm? And are there any other thoughts that you want to share about multilingualism? Yeah, so those are the three questions we can have a thought about and discuss at the end of this session. Yeah, any thoughts about that? And anything to share? Especially the second one, it would be quite interesting to think about whether multilingualism will continue to be the trend and the norm in the future. Yeah. Anyone, any thought? Yeah, Yomna, your hand is up. Yeah.
Yes, well, actually, being a multilingual or a bilingual in the near future, I guess it will continue to be a trend, but maybe afterwards it won't, because there is a rise in the artificial intelligence applications, and which can make everything easier now. And when you talk in other language, you can definitely you can simply actually talk in your language and it will instantly translate what you want to say in the other language. I know that now it's not 100% accurate and not even 50% accurate in some applications, but in the near future it will be very accurate, and the accuracy level will even reach 90 or more than 90% of accuracy. So being a multilingual won't be like a trend maybe in the future. This is what I think about based on the computational linguistics applications and the deep learning applications in specific.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a very good point. I actually never thought about it from this angle, but yeah, you're right about the artificial intelligence and being able to help us translate as we speak. I mean, I was using my phone the other day, and I was so surprised that even Google Translate now on the phone, you can actually just take a picture on the screen of the words. You can take the picture, and then it will actually directly translate it to you. You don't even need to type in the words in that language that you want to translate. Yeah, so I think technology is really gonna help a lot in translation, and that is pretty much it could be the reason why multilingualism may not be the trend in the near future, or in the further future, maybe not near just yet, because I think it might take some time for such an accurate translation to be developed, I think. Yeah. But thank you for your thoughts. Any other thoughts, any other ideas? Or anything you want to bring up? Any other things? Yeah. Yeah, if there is no, then I'm guessing we can finish this session. I hope you enjoyed it.